Thank you again, and welcome to everyone to today's live Zoom event. For those of you that I have not met, my name is Jeannie Sager, and I am the director of the Women's Philanthropy Institute, which is housed at the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. Here at the WPI, we conduct, curate, and disseminate research that grows women's philanthropy. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us as we explore our latest report, Gender and Crowdfunding, taking a deeper dive into the findings. At WPI, we often say that research is just the beginning. It's what you do with it that matters. And so we are very excited to have Karen Cahn, founder of IFundWomen, here with us this afternoon to share her insights and experience with crowdfunding. But first, we have our own Jacqueline Ackerman here to share with us more about the Gender and Crowdfunding report. Jackie is the Associate Director of Research at the Women's Philanthropy Institute. Jackie joined the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy in 2012 after earning a master's in public administration from the Indiana University Bloomington O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs. She was raised in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and is a recent transplant to Bethesda, Maryland. We like to call her office our East Coast office. So Jackie, thank you for all you do to support WPI's mission as you manage all of the aspects of our research agenda. We are truly grateful for your leadership and for all you do to uplift women's philanthropy. And I encourage all of you during Jackie's presentation to enter questions either in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be sure to get to them. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to Jackie.
All right, thank you, Jeannie, and thank you, Karen, and everyone else for being here. I'm just gonna share my screen here, and we will dive right in. All right. I'm very excited to be sharing findings from our newest report, Gender and Crowdfunding. As you may know, just a brief intro, the Women's Philanthropy Institute has researched the intersection of gender and philanthropy for more than a decade. Our research answers broad questions about how and why women give, and we've conducted more focused studies on gender differences in a variety of subjects, but things like impact investing, retirement, life satisfaction, and the intergenerational transmission of generosity. I do want to highlight giving to women and girls as another strand of our research. We have 6 reports out so far that examine this topic. And I also want to start by thanking the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for their support of this research and our other research over the last few years. Facebook also supported the data collection for this study, and we're grateful for this support, but also want to note all of our research findings and conclusions, those do come directly from WPI. The study we are talking about today comes at a time of uncertainty. So the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting economic turbulence, we know that that disproportionately affected women and has been called the she session. At the same time, we've got health and economic challenges that have driven a sharp increase in crowdfunding and we know that it could serve as a compelling vehicle for meeting the challenges of this moment. So we wanted to answer the question, how does gender impact the way that people approach crowdfunding? As Jeannie mentioned, in just a moment, we'll hear from her as well as our featured speaker, Karen Cahn, to help us contextualize the findings. But I'll briefly walk you through those findings first about women crowdfunding donors. So we'll talk through their characteristics, motivations, their views on crowdfunding, their future giving, and more. I do want to start by defining crowdfunding. In our report, we define it broadly as raising money from a large pool of donors through online platforms. This is our first report from WPI focused on gender and crowdfunding, but I do want to note that our colleagues at the Lilly Family School have put out a couple additional reports that laid some of the groundwork for this study over the last couple of years. We mentioned those in our own report, and I'm happy to link to those in the chat if anyone would like to see those. These findings are based on a nationally representative survey. So I will dive right in. Our first finding is that about 1 in 3 women gives to a crowdfunding campaign in a typical year. So that's 31.1%. And 2 in 5 women, 40.8%, have given to a crowdfunding campaign at some point in the past, even if it wasn't in the typical year. In other words, this is still a minority of women, but it's a very substantial group that has some familiarity with crowdfunding. Our next finding asks, so who are these women who are contributing to crowdfunding campaigns and what sets them apart? Well, we know that women who give to crowdfunding campaigns tend to be younger, they tend to be more educated, and they tend to be more concentrated in the Western US compared to women who do not give to crowdfunding campaigns. I also want to note that race was not a statistically significant factor in who gives or doesn't to crowdfunding campaigns, but women from diverse backgrounds engage in crowdfunding at about the same rates or even slightly higher. It's all between that kind of 31 to 35% range. Next, we asked, when women give to crowdfunding campaigns, what types of campaigns are they supporting? And our study shows that women give the most to campaigns for family members and close friends, followed closely by campaigns for charitable organizations. And compared to men, women are less likely to contribute to for-profit crowdfunding ventures. And then we next asked, why? What are the motivations for women to give to crowdfunding campaigns? And we found that generally women crowdfunding donors are citing more traditional philanthropic motivations for making these contributions. That means their top motivations are things like saying, I believe that my gift can make a difference. I'd like to remedy an issue that has affected me or someone close to me. I want to give back to my community. The things that we find that women say for why they give generally are really similar to why they would give to a crowdfunding campaign. Women seem less influenced to give by celebrities or influencers compared to men, but they can be influenced by friends or family members. So that relationship piece really seems to matter. The next couple of findings get into a couple of barriers that women might face when making crowdfunding donations. First, women crowdfunding donors are more likely than men to share about causes and projects on social media, but they are reluctant to directly ask their networks to give, either online or offline. As fundraisers, many of you know the importance of the ask in fundraising, and that research is really well established. And so we see this reluctance to directly ask others as a barrier to growing women's crowdfunding donations. Another barrier that we found is that women appear to be slightly ambivalent about crowdfunding as a giving vehicle. We asked women about their general perceptions about crowdfunding, whether they agreed or disagreed with certain statements, and some conflicting views emerged. Women tended to agree with positive statements about fundraising, about crowdfunding, saying that it can highlight projects or organizations that they might not have otherwise known about, or it makes giving really easy as a process for donors. But then on the other hand, they also express concerns about transparency and accountability of crowdfunding projects and platforms. Our last finding looks at the future of women's crowdfunding donations. So nearly 1/3 of women crowdfunding donors, that's 31.3%, plan to increase their giving to these campaigns over the next few years. And nearly all of the women crowdfunding donors that we asked, 94.6%, plan to maintain or increase their giving in the near future. So our big takeaway from that is that the future of women's crowdfunding donations looks bright, but there is still a significant opportunity to grow those donations. Kind of throwing back to that first finding, you've got 60% of women that haven't given to a crowdfunding campaign yet, and there's plenty of opportunity to grow the number of women who are participating in the future. So that is just a brief overview of our gender and crowdfunding research. I will drop links in the chat to the report and the infographic. And if you follow our social media, we definitely have been sharing about this report and our other activities. With that introduction to the research, I will be in the chat and back as needed in our Q&A to answer questions about the study. But otherwise, I'm really happy to turn things over to Jeannie Sager and to hear the discussion that follows. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And again, to echo Jackie, I encourage anyone who has additional questions about the report to feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat. And Jackie and our team can answer or follow up with you. And we will definitely bring Jackie back for the larger Q&A after our conversation with Karen. And so now it is my great pleasure to introduce Karen Cahn and engage with her in what I know will be a dynamic conversation about the future of crowdfunding and what she is seeing on the front lines. Speaking of front lines, Karen Cahn has spent the last 30 years on many of them. Front lines that have literally shaped and altered how we connect and engage. Karen Cahn is the founder and CEO of IFundWomen, a startup funding platform for women entrepreneurs. She's a pioneer in tech and media, having played major roles in innovation for little-known companies like Google, YouTube, AOL, and Salon.com. And Karen's commitment to impact isn't limited to the corporate world. She is an active angel investor in her own right and through Golden Seeds. Karen is on the board of advisors of Girl Rising, an organization dedicated to girls' education in developing countries. She is also on the Springboard Media Council and invests her human capital in their pipeline of high-growth, women-led companies. Karen, thank you so much for being with us today and for taking time to help us think about the research and how it can help inform all of our work. I know we have a lot to talk about.
I'm so happy to be here. I really am. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm looking at all your faces. Hi.
Isn't it great to see everybody? I love this platform.
Yep.
I know we have a lot to talk about, so let's just dive in. I, like everybody else in the room, would love to hear more about IFundWomen and your thoughts on what the landscape of funding for women entrepreneurs looks like from your vantage point.
Absolutely. So my bio, great. I don't really have to, go into much depth about where I've been and where I've come from, but the NetNet is the problem. We started IFundWomen because my co-founders and I are solving a massive systemic problem, which is that women entrepreneurs have a complete lack of access to capital. And when I say women entrepreneurs, women-owned businesses, nonprofits, PS, you know your businesses with a different tax code. So we're going to talk about that a lot. We work with lots of nonprofits. We are a for-profit company. Crowdfunding is one of the products we have in our funding marketplace. And one of the other products we have is our coaching platform. It's an e-coaching platform where we will teach you everything from how to do a business plan to how to raise capital, different forms of capital, to how to do an investor deck, how to build a low-tech MVP, how to beta test, basically everything you need to know to learn to run a business. And we have found success with all different types of businesses. We're really sector agnostic. We've got businesses from, again, nonprofits serving multiple different sectors, right? Nonprofits are not a monolith. You're probably all serving different groups of people doing lots of different things. And that's similar to the businesses that we serve as well. We've got biotech companies to farm-to-table restaurants to the yoga studio down the street. So crowdfunding is one of our main products, as well as enterprise brokered grants, which basically means we broker grants on behalf of large enterprises like Amex and Visa and Comcast, and the list goes on, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, et cetera, who want to fund and support women entrepreneurs. And I'll say, I'm going to use the words women entrepreneurs. You are all included in that, right? Again, what I want to really punctuate is when we help a business or an entrepreneur raise capital or get the knowledge that they need, teach them how to fish and give them the pole, right? You are all included in that, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. So That's what we do at IFundWomen. We've impacted well over $100 million in funding since we started 5 years ago. And we've our entrepreneurs, again, you are one of them, the nonprofits are part of that group, have created tens of thousands of jobs in America, and we're just getting started. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about the trends that we're seeing in crowdfunding and how people are successfully using it. Because I do think, and the study highlighted it, first of all, to the team, Jeannie and your team, and Jacqueline, the study was spot on. Like when I read it, I was like, this is right. And, you know, some of it is, a lot of it is constructive, exciting opportunity, right?
Right.
Starting from a kind of a low bar.
Yeah.
Especially in some sectors of the women's philanthropy market.
Yeah.
But there is such an awesome opportunity for all of you to raise capital for your nonprofits through crowdfunding. And the key is, truly the key is preparation and knowing how to do crowdfunding, because it's literally just sales and marketing. And I can get more into that.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit more into that. So how does the platform specifically use crowdfunding to support women entrepreneurs? And I know for me, it's really helpful to kind of hear a success story kind of from beginning to end so that I can visualize what that might look like from the start to meeting goal.
Great. And I'm going to use a nonprofit as an example so that people can relate. So there is a nonprofit in Newark called Right to Lead, WRITE, to lead. It was started by a woman named Joy Lindsay, who is a writer and a woman who lives in Newark and is an educator inside of the public school system. She saw that for teenage girls in high school, the ones that had access to writing workshops and workshops like how to write a book, she saw that those girls had markedly better outcomes in their future. So she started a nonprofit called Right to Lead. And we met Joy 4 years ago at this point. We did a cohort with Newark's mayor, Raz Baraka, called IFundWomen Newark. And Joy was part of that cohort. And the process was, we met Joy. She had this idea. She had a little bit of funding so she could do I think she had like 8 girls in her class. And she'd already seen the impact of the girls she was working with in the high school. So she knew if she could just scale, right? And you need money to scale, to get more teachers, more days of the week that they could offer the programming. It was an after-school program, and more girls into it. She could have a scalable, outsized impact on our economy, frankly, right? Because these girls are more prepared for college. They go to college, they're more prepared, they're just more prepared for the world. They go into the workforce and they're successful. I mean, it's all these things we all know, right? We don't have to prove why Joy's program is a great program. So when Joy came to us, she had a handful of girls in one class. She wanted to scale. So she needed to raise capital. And she was, when people think about crowdfunding, and I think Jacqueline, when she was talking about making the ask, there's a lot of crowdfunding shame. Let's just call it like it is, right? There is crowdfunding shame with women, all of us. And when you look at, so 75% of our members at IFundWomen are women of color, right? And we also have a platform called IFundWomen of Color, and I'll tell you about that later and why we started it. Because there is a deep disparity on the ability of white women to raise money versus women of color. And women of color are not a monolith. So within the sectors of women of color, Black women raise money differently than Latinx and Hispanic women and South Asian women. And so we have so much data and research that informs our coaching program. So we can best serve all of the businesses, whether it's by sector and within that by ethnicity. So we are hyper focused on this, and we're very good at it. So the process really is about when you learn to crowdfund, which again is just sales and marketing. So you start off with, you've got to have your pitch nailed, right? So you've got to have your pitch nailed, and it needs to be clear and concise so that when you're giving your pitch, whether it's to someone at the grocery store or, you know, at your kid's school or at church or to a fiscal sponsor, to a corporate sponsor, your elevator pitch should roll right off your tongue. It should be rote. It should be, Right to Lead is an after school program for girls in high school that teaches them how to write books, and the impact of which we've seen is XYZ. The problem we're solving is that blah, 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 blah. I'm not giving Joy's pitch because I don't really know Joy's pitch, but it needs to be like the problem we're solving with our nonprofit business, whatever it is, the problem we're solving, how we're solving it, how we know this is having impact, why we need funding, how much we need, and making the ask. And when you start to formulaically, and we have this thing called this toolbox called the IFundWomen method. It's and I will share, it's free, downloadable. I'll get it to all of you. There's a Mad Libs in there. We've created a Mad Libs for your pitch, where all you have to do is plug in what you're doing, your name, your nonprofit, all the things, and presto, you've got a pitch, literally. And it needs to become rote. You need to memorize it, learn it, love it, own it, because then and only then will you be like, oh, I can do this. Like, I can make the ask. I'm doing this 20 million times a day. And you build up this thick skin where you're going to hear a bunch of no's, but you're going to get a ton of yeses. It's literally the law of averages. It is sales. It's the more people you pitch to, the more money you're going to get in. And with crowdfunding, what's great about that is that pitch that you write with our Mad Libs becomes your video. Okay. So the piece of the crowdfunding puzzle that is so critical is to have a professionally produced video. And in this day and age, where we all of our smartphones that have a high quality 4K, capabilities, or, creating video, frankly, is very inexpensive. We do it at IFundWomen, no matter where you are. I think it's like $1,400 to create an ownable video that you have that's not just about your crowdfunding campaign, but it's a marketing video for your business. So this is like a not so shameless plug. Like if you're sitting here thinking like, oh my God, how am I going to get a video made? Whether it's for your website, for your social media, for your, for a pitch for a fiscal sponsor, for your crowdfunding campaign, like that's the last thing you should worry about, because we can help you, not expensively. And we also have a program where our video producer, Steven, can just teach you. We have a video about how to make the video, and it's free. So if you're someone that can do it, and can edit and use iMovie, it ain't so hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to think about. We have the tools literally in our hands, right? It's like we've just come so
not everybody
far
feels comfortable doing it, right?
In terms of tech, and especially over the last 18 months, right? We have become much more comfortable with the power of video and the power of interacting in this space, that it is such an important tool now to use. There are a couple of things that you said in your response that really sparked something for me and for our work at WPI, and it's this importance of intersectionalities and identity in crafting your message and building that confidence, right? So we talk a lot about, I think women struggle a bit in this confidence and this imposter syndrome space, especially when we're asking people to support our own business and support ourselves. I've worked with some female politicians who end up becoming the best fundraisers, because if you can ask money for yourself, and like you're quite literally putting yourself on the line, you create, like you said, you create this thick skin that is pretty tough. Right. And so I would imagine it's similar for your entrepreneurs. It's the same vein, right? They are putting their passions out there. And the same for all of our friends who have joined us in the room today. They're nonprofits. You're putting your own passion for your mission out there on the line too. And it makes it so much more personal. It's not like you're asking, to give to something else. It's something just so, that's in your gut, that's something that you support.
Yeah, but I would also say that your pitch needs to be a data-driven sound pitch, right? And I think this
well, we like data at WPI.
Yeah. So this is where sort of like the whole idea of donors, and I know that that's what in the nonprofit world you call your people. We call people funders or supporters, right? And they're funding your, again, I'm going to use the word business. I know it's a nonprofit, but like your business. And so if you're in the business of, like Joy Lindsay, creating a writing program for girls because it creates this impact on the economy and this impact on people of color, specifically Black girls in Newark, go from here to here because of this program. Like, that's what she's selling. She's not selling Joy Lindsay. That's the key. So when you think about going out and making the ask, don't think about, I'm making the ask for me, Karen Cahn, which puts me, you saw my shoulder, which puts me back like in this like mortifying, like, oh my God, I'm asking for somebody to like, I become the charity.
Right.
You are not the charity, right? You're not the charity. And I hate the word charity. You are the director or the whoever you are, you're the owner or the leader of this nonprofit that is doing extraordinarily important work in whatever you're doing. And that is what you're selling. Right. You're not, and you have to have the confidence in what you're building or already doing. And the confidence comes from the pitch, the data within the pitch, the impact that you're making. And that's that. I really like, you got to take the personal out of it. It's the only way to get through any kind of fundraising or really any business building, quite frankly. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's so hard, but with crowdfunding, it actually becomes easy once you can just make that pitch about the impact that you're having, why it's important and why this person needs to care, and make a specific ask. And the great thing about crowdfunding is, you can create opportunities for people to support you at $10 and $50,000 or $100,000 through our platform. We have funders who have funded $50K, $75K on their PayPal. And that happens all the time. Really. So you would think, like, who would do that? But people do it. When you are pitching to them and when you are speaking to them and when you have created, we have a rewards-based crowdfunding platform, which means, you can have perks, right? So it's like, think of a Kickstarter. It's different than Kickstarter for many reasons, but think of like, if you support Right to Lead at this level, you will be sending 5 girls to the program. This level, you'll be sending 20 girls to the program. At this level, at the $10,000 level, you will send, 20 girls to the program, and we will put, a dedicated plaque on the wall. Like, there's so many creative ways to get people to upsell, but there's also really creative ways to get everyday people who want to support what you're doing. But, it's not easy times for people. And, if I remember correctly, women of color are more likely to give than white women, which is, I'm not going to comment on that, but didn't make me feel so good. I mean, I obviously know it's true. And my name is Karen, and it's a real bummer. The whole thing is just like ironic. It's just like the worst. But in any case, you want to be able to empower people that really can't give on that $50 or $100 or $1,000 level, but would give $10 or $15 or $25. You want to empower them with a cool perk, right? So like, we have people that are doing Spotify playlists that are really cool, that, if you're an awesome music curator, that doesn't have to do with your nonprofit, but like, or a digital download. We have a biotech company that is crowdfunding, and one of the founders has a recipe from her great grandmother that she was digital download selling on her crowdfunding campaign for like $20. And she sold hundreds of them because it was
I
like,
love this reimagination of what is tangible and what is not tangible, but what motivates, right? So, you know, what are some of those, what have you learned about the motivations for crowdfunding donors? So we've kind of been talking about it from the funder side, the entrepreneur who's trying to bring people in. But what have they learned from the people who are opting in and saying, yes, you've met me where I am. I want to support your work. You've made this easy for me. What are some other motivations that you might have seen and learned about in crowdfunding donors at IFundWomen?
that's such a great question. Sell people what they want to buy. And it literally doesn't matter if it has anything to do with your business or your nonprofit. Literally sell people what they want to buy and do your due diligence. So you need to know, the first thing you want to do when you're, after you have your pitch nailed and all that, is your network mapping. So again, this is another tool I'll get to you all, and I'm going to answer this is a way to answer your question, Jeannie. So your network mapping is literally an export of your CRM, both from your professional side, your nonprofit side, and your personal side, right? And you're going to segment your audience. You're going to put people in buckets. So it's going to be people who have already donated to my nonprofit, and maybe it's like people who came to the gala, people who did it in our crowdfunding campaign, whatever it is. And then on the other side are your friends, your family, your followers, your colleagues from your other job, whatever. And you're going to put all these people in buckets, right? And you are then going to think about the motivations of the people in each bucket. So for example, let's just say, let's just keep using Joy as an example. So Joy is doing a program for girls in Newark. And so she's got her list of donors in Newark and, big money people in the, Montclair and then in Glen Ridge and the areas around Newark, et cetera, that have already donated. And, she knows what is going to motivate them, right? But then on the other side, she's built out this network now of women from all over the country that are in this space, or educators in this space, or again, her friends, her people that she went to undergrad with, et cetera. So it's really understanding, like, what is my friend from college going to want in order to give me $100 for this campaign? Oh, that girl is so shallow. She's going to want like the tote bag. She's going to want the cute tank top. I'm one of those girls, like, fine. Like my Aunt Judy, when we crowdfunded, my rich Aunt Judy, my one rich relative, she wanted merch. Like, she was not just going to give money. She wanted something. And I knew that because I know my aunt. So we created, a cool like tote bag with all this other crap in it for Aunt Judy, and she bought it. Right. So it's all about knowing. Jax, you are giving me such life right now. I love you. Yes. Hello, hello, hello. I don't know you, but I want to know you.
You want to know Jax. I promise you. You want to know Jax.
Well, I already knew that from the minute we got it. I'm like, I want to know her. So anyhow, it's about, Jeannie, you nailed it. Understanding the motivations of people and knowing and being okay with, they may want to support you because you're you, but they want something in exchange, right? A lot of rich people want to see their names on things. So like putting their name on a brick, putting their name on a plaque, putting their name on the homepage of your website, doing an Instagram live with somebody, or putting them on your podcast. We had another nonprofit, actually. They had a really popular podcast. Actually, you know what? To be fair, they just started their podcast. They were a popular nonprofit with the younger, with the kind of the millennial women set, but they had a podcast, and they sold interview spots on their podcast for $1,000 and sold a lot of them. And I bought one, by the way. When we first started IFundWomen, they were crowdfunding an IFundWomen. They were saying, for $1,000, you can be on our podcast. And I'm like, we're a brand new business. I need to get the word out there. And I bought it. So again, it's understanding like who your people are, whether they're from the nonprofit, already donor part, or prospective donors, or if they're from any other parts of your life, what is going to make them spend money. And
It makes me think,
yeah.
it makes me think about the NPR model, right? Like every week, every month, they're out there asking for money, and you can and you don't know what's going to motivate any individual donor at the time, right? Maybe it is the tote bag, maybe it is that really cool coffee mug, maybe it is that wine, or maybe you've been such a long time donor, you know that you want to make sure all the money goes to the organization. But it is about giving people options. And to your point, talking about head and heart. We know that lots of different things motivate women as donors, but one of them is impact. They really do want to understand the impact of their gift. They want to see it, feel it, touch it, in terms of a motivation for supporting a mission. And so it's so great to kind of see where those intersections happen, even in this, in the entrepreneur space. It's the same thing, right? This idea, right? This motivation. Yeah. You've touched upon some of the findings that we revealed in the Gender and Crowdfunding report. And we do know that there are, as the title suggests, overall gender differences, right, in how women and men give to crowdfunding campaigns. Was there anything in particular, since you are squarely in the women piece of the funding, from the report that resonated with you, and how the findings might have aligned or maybe even deviated from what you've seen with IFundWomen's work, that you might not have mentioned already?
Yeah, that's a great question. So while we are focused on closing the funding gap for women, nonprofits and for-profits, right? More than half of our funders are men. And we like that. That's great. They have the money.
Yeah.
So we need it. All the money for all the women now. So that's the other thing.
I think that's a great bumper sticker.
Oh yeah, that's my hashtag. It's really long, but it's like, that's literally the NetNet. All the money for all the women right now, actually, is what it is. So over half of our funders are men. They write bigger checks. They put more on their credit cards, and they believe in the founder. They believe in the founder. They believe in the business. They believe in you. All these words are synonymous with exactly who I'm looking at, this audience. And so it's giving them a reason to believe. And it's also giving them dude swag to buy. So that's the other thing. When we work with entrepreneurs, and I would love to just put this out there, if this group wants to be in a cohort and crowdfunding community together, I will lead you to the promised land personally. I'm literally making that offer. So Jeannie, we can follow up after. But if people want to get in community and crowdfund together, I'm all about it, because you got to do it. You've got to do it and get comfortable with it. But so for the men, we had this one, it was a for-profit company, but it doesn't really matter, because again, you're all companies, just with a different tax code. She was saying to me during our coaching session, she said, most of the people that I know that have any money are like my dad and his friends. I'm like, okay, well, what do they like to do? She's like, all they do is golf. I'm like, fabulous. Let's make a really cool golf shirt. We went on Custom Ink. Again, not a sponsored ad. I don't care what you use, but we went on Custom Ink. We mocked up a really cool moisture wicking, golf shirt. They had with a teeny little logo, so it was, because it was a kind of a girly logo, but it was kind of cool. So we futzed with the colors on the logo a little bit to make them a little more masculine. The shirt cost all in, including shipping, I want to say around $40 to make. We charged $400. She sold so many of those shirts to the dudes.
Yeah.
Because people just want to feel like you see them when they come to your page. They want to feel like, oh, she sees me, or he sees me, or they see me, whatever. There are things here that I would like to purchase.
So 50% of the, more than 50% of the funders are men. How do we get women more comfortable in spending their money, spending more of that money, investing more, because as we know and our research shows, you know, women's wealth is rising. We have money. What is there anything in particular in your model and in your training that helps women become more comfortable? I saw a question, and we'll get to, well, we can maybe explore that, about this financial literacy, about this power and agency in money, in investing, in philanthropy.
That's a real loaded question. I mean, you know, how real are we getting here? So, you know, historically white men have had all the money and all the power, right? And now we're seeing a transition of wealth to their, you know, wives, daughters, granddaughters, etc. The apple just doesn't fall far from the tree. So I think that, like, the transition of wealth, though, those women are going to support the things that the family has supported. You know, and whether those things are things that align with our values, I will not make a judgment on that. Yeah. I mean, I will inside my brain, but I'm not going to say it out loud. But, you know, in the for-profit sector, at least, we are seeing more women becoming venture capitalists, more women as angel investors, more women investing their money in businesses, looking for a return on investment. So we're seeing many more women becoming investors and savvy investors, which is awesome. We have a long way to go. Women raised 2.3% of venture capital dollars. All of them, all in 2020, 2.3%. And female founders of color since 2018 have raised 0.64. So, like, the funding gap is so massive on the for-profit side. And that's just venture capital. Like, that's just one small piece of the ecosystem of funding businesses, nonprofits, you know, et cetera. You know, from the PPP loans that were given out in 2020. Yeah. Out of the, you know, 5%, women own 40% of the businesses in this country. 5% of the PPP loans went to women. Yeah. And don't talk to me about the ethnicity breakdown. So here, the long and the short of it is, we have a long way to go. I think that lots of women are jumping into the pool and becoming investors in for-profit businesses. Now, I know that's not helpful for the nonprofits here, right? Because and I'm sure you're seeing it, right? With your donors that may have donated last year, who are now sort of maybe investing in something else, or maybe they're interested in another nonprofit. I would imagine that's hard, keeping the continuity year after year versus a for-profit business that's getting investors that are actually looking for a return on an investment in that business and will re-up that investment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great is, you know, your comments and what you're seeing, you know, reflect what the report showed, which is this optimism about the future of crowdfunding and the opportunities that it can present for nonprofits and for-profits.
Definitely.
Because again, it's helping. It's another tool in our toolbox to share generosity and express generosity as a woman. And we know that women are drawn to an expansive definition of philanthropy that's about all the things. It's time, it's talent, it's testimony, it's ties, it's treasure. And crowdfunding provides a great platform to bring all of those things together in a lot of ways,
yes,
right?
In a very public way. And I love that, Jeannie. And I would also say that when someone has supported your IFundWomen campaign, it is very public, and we make a big deal. Like, we will market with you. We will if you get a big funder and that funder is not anonymous, we will shout their name in lights. And then also, they're on your page, your community, they're now part of your world. And you will now start, you know, communicating with them publicly through your page, you know, also through your emails and through your events. And the relationship starts. And if you are, you know, part of it is like, and this is the same for-profit businesses and fundraising, you have to keep those relationships with your funders, your donors, whatever they are, going. And again, I am not saying this is easy. This is one of my, like, big development areas, because it's exhausting. right? It's exhausting to raise the money. And then you're like, oh my God, is it over? Like, I have PTSD, can I be done? And then you're expected to like, keep it going and keep the comms going and keep the impact studies coming and all the things. But like, you're doing the work, you're living your passion, right? So yes, it's exhausting, but if you put in the work to continue communicating with your investors, your fiscal sponsors, et cetera, you will find it so much easier to get them next year. Or frankly, with crowdfunding, we have companies that just keep their crowdfunding pages live. And we have companies that have just been raising money consistently for 4 years. That's just.
And that's a space where nonprofits and fundraisers have always been experts at, and that's relationship building.
Yeah.
And so there is a place, you've just, doubled down on why that is so important. So speaking of doubling down, before we get to our question answer session, I want to give you, time to share with us your hopes. Right? What is your hope for the future of crowdfunding and funding for women entrepreneurs? If you could do it in like, your 30-second elevator pitch for the future of crowdfunding and funding for women entrepreneurs. Not to put you on the spot, Karen.
No, I know listen, we want a world where there's just gender equity across all things money related, across all things, everything related, but we're talking about money here, period, end of story. That's it. And, if the wage gap is going to be closed in 150 years, you can be damn well sure that the funding gap is probably going to get closed in 150 years. I'll be dead before it happens, but that's what we want. We want parity. We're not looking for more. We want equal, period, end of story. And that's what we're going for. That's it. I mean, that's it.
I think we're all in for that.
Lofty goal, but then you can't have small dreams when you're doing this work. It's the Lord's work. It's not so fun, but what's fun is seeing the impact. Again, $100 million impacted and tens of thousands of jobs in just 5 years with a couple of people at the startup. Now we have 30 people, but like for a long time we had 7, right? Yeah. And so seeing the impact, and I'm sure this resonates with you all. When you see the impact of your work, and people assume IFundWomen is a nonprofit, by the way, and that's fine. Like, I don't care. We tell them it's a for-profit and it's no knock, but we are a business that has a social mission, which is not dissimilar to what you all have. Yeah. So I actually really understand that you are doing your passion. You are doing your passion and you are trying to get your passion funded. And it's so rewarding when you get those wins, and it's so exhausting. So I would just say that like the dream is for there to be equity across the board in our world. And that could sound like a pipe dream.
And the great news is, in terms of philanthropy as agency, we're seeing that in spades, right? And with Mackenzie Scott's investment in gender equity, with Melinda French Gates and Pivotal Ventures investment in gender equity, people are coming to that understanding on a global stage, especially post pandemic, and the stark reality of how all of this had a disproportionate effect on women, right? And
absolutely.
So,
but I think we're all continue, because I have to say, in all candidness, 2020 was a year that was like off the chain for giving, especially through corporations. We had so much money being thrown at our entrepreneurs through corporations, which was amazing. Everyone was putting out these big press releases about, we're doing $1 billion to, minority entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. We're doing $10 billion over 10 years to, 1 million Black women. We've seen all the press releases, and that's great. Yeah. 2021 is very different. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to keep it real with you. On the corporate side, Mackenzie Bezos, Melinda Gates, Laureen Powell Jobs, all these wonderful women in Silicon Valley, got great. We need to take the Walmart people and all the other people in the middle of the country and the real estate people on the East Coast. And we need all the rich women to be like we can really rattle off 3 or 4 women, Jean Case, there's not, as much as it's great.
Right.
I also don't want to blow smoke and be a non-realist. Like if we can only rattle off 4 or 5 really rich ladies doing the work, think about how many more really rich ladies we got to reach and convince, right? So I think there's an opportunity there. There's a huge opportunity there. And, with the corporations, it's very interesting because 2021, it's almost like, you know what? George Floyd happened last year, Black Lives Mattered last year, but this year it's about the bottom line. So our marketing dollars, and again, we get grants through marketing dollars. Actually, we don't, CSR budgets we don't get.
Right.
So I don't know what it's like on the CSR side. You guys could educate me about that because we don't play in that space. But on the marketing side, in 2020, we were in Amex's press release. We were in Visa's press release. We were in Adidas, who all were like, we're giving money to women and minority women entrepreneurs through IFundWomen. And it was all great. It was great. Yeah. This year, they're like, we really need to drive sales. We're really putting more money into Facebook direct response ads. I'm like, I get it. I came from Google. Like, I understand.
But you have to be opportunistic, right? You were able to harness this real spotlight in 2020. And so I do think that to your point, the more of us who can continue to make that push about why it's important to invest in women, because there is a larger, broader goal to be reached in terms of making our world a better place because of it. It takes all of us doing that together. Just a couple kind of questions that are coming in that I just want to make sure that you get a chance to answer. There's a question about whether or not IFundWomen is just US based or do you have an international audience?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a platform that operates in 120 countries. So that's great news. And we have boots on the ground here in the United States, and we will be expanding very judiciously to different countries and putting boots on the ground. But people from 120 countries can crowdfund. We've got about 7% of our audience is from India, which is really cool. We've got lots of people from Europe. And yeah, so our geographic footprint is pretty far and wide. 90% of our traffic is US based, but 10% is international. We do lots of international campaigns, and it's I think from a donor perspective, again, when you think about what crowdfunding actually is, it's when you, the nonprofit, you go out and you are selling your vision, your impact, your mission, your dream, your product, your service, whatever it is, to people who who want to buy into it, right? And where, so I would say if your donor base is in the United States and you're hoping, just because there might be magical money elves, there are no magical money elves, by the way, in crowdfunding, JSYK, like no magical money elves. We found that out the hard way when we crowdfunded the first time on Kickstarter. I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. We'll just put this thing up and I'm popular and this should be easy. And literally it was like refresh the first day. It was crickets. I was like, where are the magical money elves? And my co-founder, Sarah, was like, no, you got us into this.
I used to say that to my boss. I don't have a file drawer full of donors that haven't given to us yet. I don't have that.
Yeah.
To find those people. Yeah.
You have to find them, but we find them before you go live with your campaign. And we have actually like a systematic way to find those people. Yeah. And that's the key. It's the prepared.
Yeah, it's an art and a science. They're again, back to that, using data and being intentional. That's how you succeed. Well, we are close to the hour, and I knew it was going to go fast. What an energizing conversation. Karen, you are amazing. I can't thank you enough for making the time for us today. I will be using, that's my new hashtag, all the money
for all the money,
for all the women
now.
So, so
it.
thank you for providing these insights. You have some takers on a crowd, for your invitation.
I'm putting my email address in the chat.
And we will follow up with everyone who registered for today's event and who are here with us today. Karen, thank you. Just truly, truly grateful for lending your voice to the research, which is what we want. Research for research's sake isn't going to get us anywhere in growing women's philanthropy. Putting this research to practice will. So thank you to everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Email Luca and I if you want in. Seriously, we're doing it.
We will make sure everybody gets that in a follow-up email as well.
Right, meow. So let's get this going. No more waiting.
It's time. No more waiting. Now. Now is the big part of that hashtag.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Jeannie. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Karen. Bye, everyone.